The behind-the-scenes fight between Booker T and Batista is something that made the news back in 2006, but what exactly happened was never made crystal clear. Even today, accounts of the fight seem to vary quite a bit, so it's always been hard to work out the whole story. Batista wrote about the scuffle very briefly in his autobiography Unleashed, a book that was released 1 year after the fight took place, while Booker T's 2015 autobiography, My Rise to Wrestling Royalty, went into much more detail. In saying that, there's one eyewitness account that seems to go against what Booker T wrote in his book, so it's still hard to tell what happened during the fight. We're going to take a look at Batista and Booker's autobiographies today to get their take on the fight, and we'll also look at that other account that tells a very different story in regards to what happened when Booker and Batista had a very real backstage fight. I'm pretty sure that everybody watching this video would know who Booker T and Batista are, but it's important to know where both men were during this time in their careers. Booker T, by 2006, was a veteran of the business who went pro back in 1992. Booker worked as a tag wrestler along with brother Stevie Ray. Their team was known as the Ebony Experience, but once they signed with WCW in 1993, and once they became Harlem Heat, well, the sky was the limit. Harlem Heat became popular with wrestling fans while simultaneously becoming a cornerstone of the WCW Tag Team division. And when Booker eventually decided to go solo, he became WCW World Heavyweight Champion. When WCW closed its doors, Booker was one of the guys who turned down guaranteed Turner money to stay at home in order to debut in the World Wrestling Federation. And while things were a little rocky at first, over time, Booker T became a superstar who was deeply respected backstage by his peers. Booker was reliable. You never heard stories of Booker T trying to put others down to further his own career. He took part in any storyline or feud the WWE threw him in, and just like his Harlem Heat days back in WCW, Booker T became a cornerstone of WWE programming. In 2004, Booker was traded to the Smackdown brand, where he arguably had his most successful run in the WWE. And in 2006, Booker T, now known as King Booker, captured the World Heavyweight Championship. The King Booker stuff was absolutely fantastic, by the way, and it showed Booker T still had a lot to offer in 2006. Dave Batista got into the wrestling game later than most. He had his first pro match in late '99 before signing with the WWF in 2000, instantly getting sent to Ohio Valley Wrestling to learn his craft. He made his WWE TV debut in 2002 as Deacon Batista, a sort of bodyguard for Reverend Devon. It wasn't until Batista moved to Raw in January of 2003 to join Triple H's Evolution faction where things really picked up for Dave. Batista was handpicked by Triple H himself to join this sort of reincarnation of the Four Horsemen, and from here there was nothing but opportunities placed in front of Batista. Many would say Batista's journey to the top was seriously expedited due to his association with Triple H and Evolution, but what can't be denied is the fact that Batista was very popular when he won the WWF Championship in 2005. Batista defeated Triple H at WrestleMania 21 to claim the title, and he went on to headline multiple pay-per-views with the game afterwards. You can maybe see the contrasts in Batista and Booker's careers. Booker rose to the top in a much more traditional sense with a deep match history behind him, whereas many would say Dave Batista didn't have to go through so many hardships in order to sit on top of the mountain. This isn't a jab at Batista either. Many of today's most loved superstars didn't have to grind it out either, and it's just how wrestling has evolved. But in a way, Booker represented the old school mentality of paying your dues and working your way to the top, and Batista was a new breed of superstar, one that could walk in, turn a lot of heads, and gain a lot of success without needing to wrestle for over a decade beforehand. After finishing up the Triple H rivalry, Batista was moved over to Smackdown in June of 2005, so we have Booker and Batista wrestling on the same brand. There were reports of Batista rubbing a lot of Smackdown guys the wrong way upon his arrival. Apparently Dave made it clear he legitimately wasn't happy being on the blue brand, and he had it in his head that Raw was the premier show the WWE had to offer and that's where he should be. Over time, Batista began having a relationship with WWE diva Melina, and the problem here was that both Batista and Melina were already involved with other people. Melina and Johnny Nitro, maybe better known as John Morrison, were a couple at the time, and it's been said that Morrison didn't know how to handle his girlfriend seeing another guy, and according to Booker T's book, it was this relationship that set off a chain of events leading up to this fight with Batista, but we'll come back to this in a moment. Booker T was the World Heavyweight Champion when the Superstars of the WWE travelled to California for a commercial shoot. This commercial was for SummerSlam 2006, and it would feature the Superstars having a barbecue outside a giant mansion, a mansion the WWE hired for the evening. At SummerSlam, Booker was scheduled to defend his world title against Batista, by the way. While the other Superstars were having fun on set, Booker and Batista ended up having a fight. And the best thing to do from here is to read from Booker and Batista's autobiographies so you can get their respective sides of the story. As mentioned, Batista doesn't go into an incredible amount of detail, but Booker does. So let's start with Batista's tale of events. Booker and I had a falling out the spring before my comeback. We were in LA to do a photo shoot for SummerSlam. We got into a disagreement that escalated into a fist fight, a real fist fight. It wasn't part of a promo or anything like that. King Booker had become champion while I was gone, and I think, in his opinion, I didn't give him the professional courtesy or respect that a veteran wrestler, let alone the champion, deserves. Which was true. I showed up at the photo shoot and I pretty much said hello to everybody except him. I had a personal problem with Booker, which was why I was rude. People have pushed me to talk about the personal aspects, but I don't care to go into it. We move ahead, and the point is, no matter how I felt, I should have at least been respectful and said hello, not acted as if he didn't exist. He's earned respect in this business. I didn't show it, and I was wrong. Anyway, one thing led to another, and there we were in a fist fight. Kind of silly, but that's where it ended. Feels quite dismissive, doesn't it? You get the impression that Batista wanted to acknowledge the fight in his book and nothing more, which is fair enough too, by the way. Booker T, on the other hand, dedicates a few pages to the fight, so let's see what Booker had to say. This does paint a better picture of why the fight happened and what exactly happened during the scuffle. Batista had been messing around with Melina, John Morrison's girlfriend, in front of everybody, including Morrison. They'd be out at the bars and clubs all over each other and sharing hotel rooms on the road, while John was too passive to do anything about it. It bothered everyone. As a result of this, both Batista and Melina developed serious heat with all of us. We decided in Germany to handle things in our own system, Wrestler's Court, where we dealt with crimes against the code of the locker room. Since Dave wasn't on that tour, that left Melina, who had no idea she was about to be taken into custody and placed in front of the Honourable Judge Undertaker before a jury of her peers. She was grilled by prosecuting attorney Bradshaw and me. It was time for an admission of guilt. We officially charged Melina with divaism, the act of running around on one's husband or boyfriend, shaming the Divas division and the locker room. It was really only an elaborate joke and a way to tell Melina what needed to be said, put it in the past and move on. When we got back to the States, however, Dave wasn't happy at all. There was tension in the locker room while we stayed on our separate sides at the first Smackdown taping since our return home in Cincinnati on May 2nd. So that's the personal reason that Dave wouldn't talk about in his book. This whole thing started over Melina going to Wrestler's Court. There's two ways of looking at this. You could say someone should have pulled Melina to the side and talked to her quietly about what she was doing, effectively saving her from getting ripped apart by the whole locker room in Wrestler's Court. Or you could say she absolutely deserved it. Either way, Melina told Batista about what happened, so let's go back to Booker's autobiography. The following Saturday, May 6th, most of the WWE rosters from both brands travelled to Encino, California for the big commercial shoot for SummerSlam 2006. We were staying at a mansion the company had rented out. It was beautiful with sprawling grounds, amazing scenery and a giant swimming pool. Rey Mysterio, JBL, Randy Orton, Finlay, Ricky Steamboat, Matt Hardy, Tatanka, Melina and others, virtually every WWE superstar and diva, were having a great time, enjoying a perfect California day. In the midst of all the insanity, Dave, who had arrived late, came out to the pool area and stood there scanning the scene, not saying a word to anybody. Ray and some others went up to break the ice with a hello, but Batista simply stood brooding. Tatanka, a guy I really respected, was in the pool next to me. He leaned toward me and said, "Look at him standing there, big timing as usual. He doesn't even have the respect to come over and say hi to the boys." Later on, we had some lunch around the patio tables and I excused myself to the bathroom. While walking towards the house, I noticed Dave heading in my direction. Before we passed each other, he veered to the far left to go around me. I stopped and yelled out, "Hey Dave." He turned around. As politely as possible, I said, "Here's the thing, you don't like me and I don't like you, but the fact is we have to work together. But I'll make it clear, if you cross me, I'm going to kick your ass and there ain't nothing you can do about it. The best thing possible would be to keep your distance." All the boys outside stopped eating to watch. You could hear a pin drop. I saw him heating up as I walked away. When I came back and set to continue the good time we were all having, he stomped towards the table. "What's your problem with me, man? Do you find me a challenge because I'm the top draw on the card and have done more in the last couple of years than you have in your entire career? Are you jealous? Are you kidding me? You're going to stand there and disrespect all the boys by saying that?" Then, in an act of machismo, he asked me to walk with him outside the gate and settle it. I said, "Man, get out of here. If you're going to do something, do it right now. This isn't the school playground." He glared at me. I'd called his bluff, and he didn't do anything. To me, it was obvious he was only charging off at the mouth because all the agents like Finlay and Steamboat were gathered around. I went back to my plate, and he walked away. Shortly after, one of the producers came to me and said, "Booker, we need you to get ready for a shoot. Can you get dressed?" Absolutely. I made my way to my tiny bedroom and started undressing. I was down to my underwear and nothing else, not even socks, when Batista walked in wearing his wrestling gear. "Talk that shit you were just talking out there, Booker. Go ahead." I laughed. "Whoa man, you're going to come in here and catch me in my drawers? Come on, if you want to do this, get out of here and let me put some pants on. I'll be right out. This is ridiculous." He stared a hole through me. "There's not much room in here anyway. I'll be waiting just outside for you." "Okay, I'll be out in a minute," I said, rolling my eyes. I casually put on a pair of pants and a white shirt, no shoes or socks, and took my diamond-encrusted ring off my left hand and placed it on my right. As I opened the door, I was fairly annoyed he was wasting my time and delaying the shoot. I took 2 steps forward, and there he was. "Well, I'm out here, now what are you going to do?" "Talk that same shit you were outside," he said. "Man, if you're going to make a move, go ahead and do it. Otherwise, I'm going to fill my spot. I've got business to attend to, that's why we're here." Ray came in and said, "Come on, Book, don't do this." "Ray, please step back. If he's going to do something, let him do it." Dave took a big, slow swing at me. I stepped to the side and he fell forward, striking nothing but air. I thought he was joking. It was a total goof punch with nothing behind it. "Man, you don't want this. Let's go about our business." I started to walk away when he threw another shot, just as poorly timed, and again it slipped out of his way as his arm passed me. As much as I regretted it, in an effort to put this thing to a quick end before it got out of control, I took 2 steps back, quickly stuttered up, and punched him right in the chin. All of a sudden, I felt arms around me and heard yelling, "Book, stop it, he's had enough." It was Finlay. I looked back and saw Melina's boyfriend, John Morrison, also there helping pull me off, which was crazy. Part of me wanted to kick his ass for not handling his own problems. Charmel was finally in there too, furiously looking for Melina because she wanted a piece of the action too, but that girl was long gone. I told Finlay, "Okay, I'll lay off." But before Finlay let go of my arms, Batista reached up and, boom, punched my left eye. I started chuckling that he'd sneak one in on me like that, which was the only shot he managed during our little escapade. I told Fit this had to be finished and he stepped back as I took Dave right back down. Even Charmel let in a couple of kicks on him. Finally, Finlay stepped in again. "Okay, Book, that's enough. He can't take any more." I looked down at Dave and Fit was right. He was pretty well beaten up and it was obvious this thing was over. His face was a mess and it was clear he wasn't interested in continuing any more than I was. Before I left, I turned to Dave and said, as if we were out in the schoolyard, "If this beef of yours continues, every time I see you and the boys ain't around, I'm going to beat you up again." As he started to get up, he muttered, "Well, that's really mature." To which I responded, "Yeah, well, it was really mature for you to call me out to a fight too." I walked away, cleaned up and went to the shoot. Once I'd had a chance to think about it, I started having concerns about what had just happened, knowing full well I could have walked away and been the bigger man, instead of resorting to physical reprisal with one of the top guys. What would Vince or anybody else in the WWE think? The last thing I wanted was to reflect poorly on the company and the business. Okay, that was a lot to take in, I know, but there you have it. To summarise, Dave got annoyed about Melina going to Wrestler's Court. He then showed up at the SummerSlam Commercial shoot where he big-timed everyone. Booker T called Batista out and it led to a fight breaking out inside the mansion itself. And according to Booker, Batista was no match for the champ. Batista apparently got in a cheap shot which led to Booker finishing the job, and even Booker's wife got in a few kicks. The story we have here is that Batista was absolutely humbled, and Booker maybe started regretting it once he had time to think. Finlay was one of the guys trying to stop the fight, and Finlay also gave an interview years later about what happened. This is where things get a little messy because Finlay said Booker T did not win any fights during this commercial shoot and the whole thing was just blown out of proportion. It's a little hard to grasp. You read Batista's book and it feels like he doesn't want to talk about it. You read Booker T's book and it feels like Booker is having a great time reminiscing about the fight. But then you have Finlay saying something else altogether. The thing is though, Finlay has nothing to gain from lying about what happened, so I don't know, it's your call really. Finlay said, "I don't know what started it, but they were rolling on the floor. They will say Booker T got to Dave, but that's not how it was. Dave was on top of Booker T, you know. Booker T had a swollen eye. When we pulled it apart and stood him up, Sharmell kicked Dave right in the nuts. Nobody will tell you that, but she snuck a kick in and kicked him right in the nuts, and he didn't sell it. Booker was threatening, 'I'll come to your door, I'll find you in the dark.' And Dave Batista said, 'No, we're going to sort this out right now. If this isn't over, it's got to be over right now.' Then it broke down and it sort of fizzled out and they just agreed to disagree after that. But Dave didn't get beat up by Booker T. That's probably the main story out there, but that's wrong." Kurt Angle also talked about the fight, and while he doesn't say who won or who lost, he does say that the fight started for a completely different reason. Speaking on his podcast, Kurt said, "We were all doing a commercial, I think it was for SummerSlam, and someone approached Dave and Batista said, 'When are you coming over to Smackdown because I have nobody to work with?' And Booker took that as, 'Wait a minute, I'm on Smackdown, there are a lot of people to work with.' I think Batista was just saying because there were a lot of injuries going on, it was getting a little bare at the top, and he was just trying to tell the person, 'I'd love for you to come over and work a program with you.' I don't think it was anything personal against Booker T or anyone else on SmackDown, so Batista said it and Booker T confronted him. Now, the situation got hotter because Booker confronts Batista, makes Batista look like an idiot. Batista yells at Booker, then they end up in a fight. I should also mention that an article on WWE.com featuring 11 backstage beefs made mention of the Booker T vs Batista SummerSlam fight, and in typical WWE fashion, the company said the fight happened simply because Batista didn't say hello to Booker T. The article implies that Booker got mad because Batista wasn't showing respect for those who came before him, so the lesson here is to take everything you read on WWE.com with a grain of salt, but I'm sure you knew that anyway. So, what happened afterwards? Both guys had a meeting with John Laurinaitis. Again, Batista doesn't go into much detail, but he wrote in his book, "The next weekend, Johnny Ace, the head of talent, set us up together for an appearance. The real reason he wanted us there was so he could be there and make sure we talked. And we did. I apologised to Booker for not giving him the respect that he earned, and that was it. Our problems were pretty much squashed after that. We decided we were both going to be professional and put our personal differences aside. We really had the same goal, the betterment of the company. We had to work like professionals, have some good matches, and try to make some money with each other, which we did." Booker T not only wrote about the Johnny Ace meeting, but Booker T was also summoned to Vince McMahon's office. Booker T wrote, "Before the Smackdown taping in San Diego on May 9th, Vince called me into his office and wanted to hear the details for himself. I told him if it ever happened again, I wouldn't try to walk away from a fight, I would walk away. He looked at me and simply said, 'Only if you have to, Booker.' In the end, although there was no love lost, I released all animosity toward Dave. I had to for my own well-being. Harbouring anger would only hurt me, it's just not healthy. Instead, I decided to respect him for having the courage to stand up when he felt he had to, win or lose. There would be a time we'd have to work with each other and be professional performers under contract for Vince, the company, all the boys in the locker room, and the public. In the days and weeks to come, the story of our real fight was big news on the internet. People got it wrong every time with their theories and assumptions. All the boys who weren't there kept pulling me aside to ask what happened, and I always told them the truth. Many of them heralded me as a backstage hero and a leader, but that's not how I felt about it. Respect is gained through time, performance, and behaviour, not through swinging your way to infamy. Slowly but surely, a lot of the veteran agents like Sergeant Slaughter, Gerald Briscoe, Jack Lanza, and Pat Patterson, they approached me to let me know they respected what I did for the business, that I'd fought for everything they stood for. Unfortunately, I think Dave wore our fight like a dark cloud over him for many years, feeling he had a lot to prove publicly. Maybe that was part of the reason why he eventually retired from the WWE. He stepped into an MMA cage in 2012 and emerged victorious, and now he's established a successful career in Hollywood. I give him much respect for it. And that's it really. On his podcast, Booker T says he sees Batista as a friend and he has respect for him. This whole fight was just two guys who wanted to settle their differences and move on afterwards. They weren't running the dirt sheets to plan stories and they weren't talking behind each other's backs. They had a fight and they done business afterwards. And that's something you have to admire, especially in the world of wrestling where there's so much cloak and dagger nonsense going on. All's well that ends well. The two would continue to have great careers and neither man holds any ill feelings towards the other. Thanks very much for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed this one and take care.